Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to the Year 4 Meet the Teacher session for this new school year. It's been a really great start. We've really enjoyed welcoming your children back into school and into Year 4 for these last couple of weeks. And we think the children have started really well. It's been a really great start. So the aim of this session is to give you some information about Year 4 specifically, about the curriculum, about what you can expect in terms of homework, in terms of trips and visits as your children move through the year, and also for you to be able to meet the teachers for your year group and put a name to a face if you haven't already been able to do so. As we move through the session, you might have questions about any of the content, and that's absolutely fine. Just drop them into the chat, and then at the end of the session there'll be time to answer those questions. So we will go through all of those questions at the end of the session. As I say, it is being recorded, so you can share the session with anyone who hasn't been able to join after the fact. We'll send it out as a YouTube link later today, hopefully. Okay, so enough from me. I'll pass you over now to the Year 4 teachers who are just going to step into shot.
Right, thank you, Mr. Turk. Okay, so we're just going to go through today's slides with you and basically just tell you a little bit about Year 4 and what is going to be happening this year. Okay, so first of all, the team that's in Year 4. So my name is Mr. Singleton and I'm going to be teaching in Panthers class. And I have Mrs. Ford who's going to be helping me in Panthers. And over in Leopards we have...
Hello, I'm Miss Calder. I started this year. So it's me as class teacher, and then we have Mrs. Johnston, who you might recognise. I think some of the children had her in Year 1, and then Mrs. Stokes is also in our classroom to help us this year.
Fantastic. Okay, so moving forward. So the structure of the day is kind of as follows on the screen. So the children will come in anywhere from 8:40 until 8:55, I think is the registration period. So the children will come in the morning, and then at this age, we expect the children to be able to come in by themselves, take themselves to their lockers downstairs, unpack their bags, and then make their way upstairs to the classroom. About 5 to 9, we take the register, and then when the children are in the classroom, we have a little arithmetic task which is on the board. So the kids come in, they settle down into their seats, they get themselves organised for the day, and then they start the arithmetic task that is on the board. So what we tend to ask from the boys and girls in Year 4 is that they're starting to be a little bit more independent in terms of they need to get themselves organised. They need to make sure they've got the resources for the lessons, their whiteboards, their pens, their rubbers, their pencils. So if anything's not working, they just need to make sure they have everything with them for the lessons. So we're trying to get them to be a lot more independent. So once we've done the register and we've gone through the questions, the arithmetic, and we've done the answers, we'll then move on to maths. Now for maths, we're following the White Rose maths scheme, which is fantastic, and it really teaches the kids their knowledge of number, and we really sort of place a big emphasis on them understanding what that number means within the question, within the structure of the number, and we do a lot of work on that. After we've done our maths, we move on to whole class reading. Now the purpose of the whole class reading is we focus on one text per week, and then we really dive deep into that one text, and we start to answer simple questions on that text. And then we start to dive into deeper questions towards the end of the week, where we expect the children to write a fuller, deeper understanding answer to that end of the week question. We have assembly as well 3 times a week. So we have assembly on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday. On Wednesday, it's our behaviour assembly. And then on Friday, it's our achievements and right of the week assembly. Also as well, we mark the homework on a Wednesday as well with the children. So we'll come on to homework shortly, but we'll mark that on a Wednesday. And then each week as well, each day of the week, we'll read a chapter of our class novel, which I think at the moment is I Was There, and it's about a little girl, who was there at the time of Boudicca's rebellion against the Romans. So that fits in nicely with our topic. So the children will then go out to break time at 10:50. Once they come back from break, we'll do SPAG, which is spelling, punctuation and grammar. So we'll do spelling twice a week and then grammar 3 times a week before we move on to our English. Now for our English, we do a block at a time. So the block that children are working on at the moment is non-chronological reports, and they're going to be writing a report about the Romans and what the Romans brought to Britain and how they did whilst they were here. So what the Romans did for us. After we finish English, we will then go outside for lunch. So the children will have an hour for their lunch break, at which point they'll go into the hall and eat at some point as well. And then they'll spend the rest of the time outside with their friends eating, just get a bit of respite before they come back for the afternoon lessons. So when they come back in the afternoon, we go into Sounds Right, Sounds Right is a spelling scheme that we have brought into. All the teachers have been trained up for that. It says coming soon because Mrs. Calder is just being trained up at the moment. And then as soon as she is, we can then get started with that. But that will be happening just after half term, I think. Okay, and then in the afternoon after Sounds Right, we have our foundation subjects. Now we usually do 1 or 2 of those foundation subjects, depending on how deep we're getting involved with that subject. You know, we might be doing a lengthy science little experiment, so we might just do that for the afternoon. Or we might be doing 2 subjects, say PE, PSHE, or geography. But in the afternoon, we'll do our foundation subjects. And then at 3 o'clock, we finish and we hand them back to yourselves. Okay, so here is our curriculum. So as we say, we've got our English, which includes our reading, phonics, writing, and SPAG. So we're doing all of those things. Make sure the children have lots of opportunities to read. Okay, they can show their awareness of phonics, show their writing, and then we also teach them their SPAG. So they're getting that punctuation. So it's a nice little a well-rounded approach to English. We've also got maths, science, PE, PSHE, art, music, geography, history, RE, computing, DT, and French. Now, what we tend to do is a lot of those topics will link into what we're teaching as our overall topic for that half term or for that term. So at the moment, we're doing Romans. So a lot of our history and our geography will be linked to our Romans topic as well. So it all feeds into what we're doing. It's not separate or it's not standing alone. It hopefully all feeds into our overall topic for the term. Okay, so going on to our topics. At the moment, we are in Autumn 1 and we're looking at I Am Warrior. And it says Romans, but specifically, we're looking at the Roman Empire. So how the Roman Empire started, when it started, who started it, you know, the spread of the Roman Empire as it moved from Rome, as it spread over across Europe, touching Great Britain. Okay, before we move on into Autumn 2, where we're looking at Romans in Britain specifically. So the impact that the Romans had in Britain and what they left behind. And looking at a few things as well, the rebellion of Boudicca fighting back against the Romans. So we have lots of fun. In Spring 1, we move on to Raiders and Invaders, which then moves on from the Romans. So after the Romans left in 400 AD, we had the Anglo-Saxon period up to 1066, the year 1100, where we had the Battle of Hastings. So we covered those 600 years after the Romans have left Britain, and we look at the Anglo-Saxon period and what happened and what developed from there. In Spring 2, we look at Road Trip USA, which is Native Americans. So we look at Native Americans in America, where they are geographically, and how they lived. And then in Summer 1, we look at potions, which is fantastic. It's Harry Potter, and the children love this topic because it's just about Harry Potter. And we do lots of writing, which is fantastic, and the kids have a really good time. And then in Summer 2, we do what is one of my favorite topics, bottoms, burps, and biles, which is basically looking at the human body and how it digests our food, from how it comes into the mouth and then how it leaves the body as well, which the kids love because they get to make poo in the lessons. They make it by eating the food, showing the digestion, and then how it comes out the other end. So get ready for that because it's a little bit gruesome. Most kids love it. Some kids sometimes are a bit green, but it's a great topic. And over the year, we do a lot of exciting things. Okay, so to help with our topic, we've got what we call Spark Days and educational visits. Now, these Spark Days try and create that debate within your children. So with Romans at the moment, our first little trip on Friday is to go to Verulamium Museum. Now, Verulamium is in St. Albans, and it's one of those towns which Boudicca fought against and she burnt to the ground. So there's a lot of history there. The kids can see where she came and where she attacked. There's a few Roman ruins there as well. And they get to really immerse themselves in that experience to get a really good understanding of what it was like to be in a village when it was being attacked by somebody. And it's a really nice thing for them to do. To supplement in Spring 2, we are going to have what's called an open box theatre, and this is a Roman invasion workshop. And this is a fantastic workshop where they come in and they basically build a boat with the children, and then they just invade from as though they're landing from the beaches. And they then take the children through what the Romans would do when they land on the British beaches in Kent, and then working their way inland from there. So that's quite an immersive experience for them to really get used to. We also have Chertsey Museum. They come in and do a little workshop with us. So when we go on to our Anglo-Saxon period, they bring in some resources where the kids can get dressed up, and they also get to handle those artifacts so they can see what the Anglo-Saxons would have used, what they fought with, and how they would have wrote and play some games. And that's quite a nice immersive experience as well. Now, in between all of our Spark Days and our educational visits, we also go to PGL. which is for the children, probably their first time they've had a residential a time away from home. So it's a 3 days. We go away for 2 nights and 3 days where we take the children. It's just down to Devil's Punch Bowl, I think it is. And they do lots of high wire activities, lots of fun, lots of fire making, lots of marshmallows, and just basically having a really nice time away from home. So it's their first residential experience. They go away again in year 6, but in year 4, it'd be the first time they've gone away as a year group. And it's just a really nice time where it's about confidence building, just improving their self-confidence and just getting them to stretch themselves as much as possible. To support our American topic, the Native Americans, we have an American Day on site where we do lots of American games, we do lots of American activities, and we eat some nice American food, which is quite lovely. And again, for Harry Potter, we will play a Quidditch tournament. We're going to be teaching the kids Quidditch and then playing a Quidditch tournament with them, so they really get an understanding of how that game runs. And then our last little visit of the year is to go to the Science Museum. Now there, it's experiencing the journey that food takes through the body. So they're going to watch a wonderful display where they show how food goes through the body, the digestion that takes place, and then obviously coming out the other end again as well. But it's a really, really exciting year with lots of trips planned. So hopefully the kids should be very entertained. Okay, in terms of our assessment in year 4 is teacher-based assessed. So we will be assessing the teacher 3 times of the year. So at the end of autumn, at the end of spring, and at the end of summer. And we will be using our assessment grids in maths, English, and reading to make sure that the children are at age expected, or we can assess them to see where they are, what support is needed, and then make sure that the children are performing as we hope them to be. In addition to that, we will also be sitting at what's called a times tables check. Now, this is a statutory assessment that we have to take from the government, and the children will be taking this. It's a 25-question test, which is checking their ability to do the times tables. So it's a times test where they get 6 seconds to answer 6 seconds to answer 1 question, and they'll be doing 25 of those on the computer, but we'll be practicing with the kids and giving them lots of time to get used to this. Now, just on the bottom there as well, and we spoke to some of the children this morning, we were going to be asking the children to practice on TT Rockstars at home as well. And there's a little test on TT Rockstars called Sound Check, where the children can practice that game and then get used to it. Because what we find is a lot of the children can answer those questions, but then they get a little bit panicky when they have 6 seconds to answer the question, but it's 6 seconds to read the question, think of the answer, and then type the question in as well. So it's not a lot of thinking time. So it does take a little bit of practice for them to get used to how that format works. But yeah, if you could practice as well with the children at home, that would be really good. But we'll give you lots of information about this and we'll help the kids as much as we can. Okay, for PPA, which is our planning time, myself and Miss Calder will be going on Monday afternoon to plan for the week ahead. Now, whilst we are planning, the children are going to be supported and taught by Mrs. West. Now, Mrs. West is fantastic. She's been at the school a very long time and she knows the kids inside out. And she'll be teaching them art, which I know she will love because that is her favourite subject. So they get a very good art teacher coming in to teach them. And then Mrs. Rogan will be teaching the children PE on a Monday. And again, Mrs. Rogan loves PE. She's fantastic at it. It's one of her passions. So the kids are going to be very, very well supported when me and Mrs. Calder have our planning sessions. And they're going to be teaching both classes on a Monday. So what happens is Mrs. West will teach my class to begin with, and then they'll swap over, and then Mrs. West will teach leopards after that. So both classes will have the same afternoon on a Monday. Okay, moving on to homework, which is always fantastic fun, and trying to get the kids to do the homework is always a bit of a challenge. But what we ask for the homework is this. We give out the daily reading books and we ask the children to read every night just for 5-10 minutes, just to make sure they are getting exposed to that language, to that text. And what we do is we match their English reading, so we match their reading book with their reading level. So it is suitable for them and it is a book they should be able to read independently. And again, if you can just make sure that they are doing that and then you sign their reading record daily just to tell us that they have read, and then we'll try and make sure the kids are refreshing their books on a daily or a weekly basis, as and when they need to, really. But we do ask the kids in the morning to come in, put the reading records in their boxes, and then if they need to change their books, they can go and change the books themselves. So they're taking independence with that. But yes, if you can make sure the children are reading, because it is fantastic. And we do notice a big difference that those children who do read a lot when you read their English writing, their work, the language that they are able to input into their writing is reflective of how much they are reading, because they're just getting exposed to so much. In addition to the reading book that we send home as well, a lot of the children want to read other books themselves. So they want to read a bit more chapter books, a little bit more challenging books, which is absolutely fine. You know, if they can read our book, and then if they want to read more books on top of that, you know, it's just encouraging them to read as much as possible is only going to be a positive thing. In terms of the homework that we give out, so homework is going to be given out each Wednesday, and there is a SPAG book and a maths book for them to do. Now, inside of the SPAG book on the inside page, there is a timetable which explains to the children what they should be doing for that week, which page number, what is the title, and that is for both maths and for their SPAG. So if you can have a look on the inside cover of the SPAG book, you should be able to see that. And then that will be coming back in on a Monday morning. So today, the children have mostly brought it back in, and then we will go through with the children as a class, and we mark it together either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And as it says at the bottom, in addition to practice on TT Rockstars. So in their reading records, we have printed off their TT Rockstars logins. So they have it inside of their reading records. So they've got those logins at home for you. So if they say they've lost their account and their login, that's not quite true. It should be there. Just have a little look inside their reading records. Okay, in terms of expectations, we expect the children to be in roughly around about 96% attendance, pretty much because the more they attend, the more they are able to join in with the work that we are doing. If the children are missing for quite a long portions of time, they do miss out on a lot of what we are doing as a school, because all the work we do isn't a standalone lesson. It all builds to a bigger picture. So for English example, if we miss 2 or 3 lessons, they miss part of that where we really inform them of what we're going to be writing about, and then they have to try and catch up with that understanding, that knowledge, and they do miss big chunks which then go into their big write at the end of that unit of work. So yeah, attendance is fantastic, and if the kids can be in as much as possible, then that would be really beneficial for them. In terms of their uniform, it's the Grovelands uniform expectations, please. We don't have jewellery. I know some of the children do have their ears pierced, but if they can use a retainer rather than jewellery, then that would be preferable. And then again, just making sure that the hair is tied up correctly, just they're able to take part in school lessons and PE. And then in terms of PE kit, we ask that the children come into school on their PE lessons, which is a great thing, which really helps, because then we just find that all the children are ready to go and we can have longer PE lessons. So PE for Panthers is on a Monday and a Tuesday. And then for Leopards, it's on a Monday and a Thursday. Okay, up on the board now, you'll see our Grovelands values of kindness, respect, friendship, uniqueness, trust, and determination. And we teach the Grovelands values to the children as part of our PSHE lessons. But when as well we see any of the children showing any of our Grovelands values, whether that's within the lessons, whether that's around school, we might give them a values token, we might give them a reward. We do raffle tickets in the class, but we want the children to start to show and start to think about what it means to be a Grovelands pupil and the values that they need to be showing to be a Grovelands pupil as well. And again, each class has created a set of promises based on these values. Okay, so our behaviour system is linked again to our Grovelands values. So the values tokens in school will be demonstrating for any of those values, and they're given this, so when a child is given one of the tokens, these tokens are then collected and then transferred to a little house team collection box that we have near the office. And then the winning house team at the end of each term get to have a special treat in school, which I think is quite often a mufti day, or it might be something else, which, you know, I think last year they had pizzas, but it's a nice way of rewarding them and saying thank you for their efforts that they've shown throughout the year. Okay, on to concerns. If there is any concern that you or your child has about anything, we just encourage you guys to speak out to us, whether it's your child themselves coming to speak to a member of staff, or whether they need to talk to a parent or a carer who can then pass their worries on to us, or even just writing a note to us as well, or writing us a letter. Please just let us know if there's anything we need to know, because that then might just explain if a child is quiet for one morning or if there's a reason, we just understand what that reason is, other than thinking that that child is just not engaging in the learning. It just gives us the bigger picture, and then we can try and help and add any support that we may need to. And again, if there are any parental concerns, could you please speak to ourselves, either me or Miss Calder as the class teacher, And then if we are able to help you, if you could speak to our phase leader next, which is Mrs. Hall, which I know a lot of you know from last year. And then if it still hasn't been resolved, you can then speak to one of the senior leadership team, Mr. Tuck or Mrs. Coleman. But yeah, if you have any concerns, remember, it is important to speak to us. Okay, parent meetings. We will have 2 parent consultations throughout the year, in the autumn and the spring terms, where we can meet online, I think it is still this year, and we have a 10-minute chat about your child and how they're going on in the classroom, how their learning is going, if there's any concerns we have, and then an opportunity for yourself to discuss any concerns that you might have as well. If your child has any special educational needs and you have a pupil passport, we will be having a pupil passport meeting every term to specifically talk about their targets. So that is in addition to the autumn and spring parent meetings as well. So we will be meeting quite regularly, but as you say, we are available on the doors in the mornings or at pickups if you need to speak to us. Okay, are there any questions that have come through? There's one in the chat, so I'll just have a look at that. Okay, so how best is it to talk to the teacher at drop-off or pick-up? Because it can be quite chaotic. Yes, it can be. I found that quite often as well. But if you are able to wait, we are able to have a conversation after all the children have been picked up. If that isn't possible, you can ask to pull one of us aside, because quite often we're there with our teaching assistant, Mrs. Ford or Mrs. Johnson anyway. So they're able to dismiss the children whilst we deal with any questions. But whichever works best, really. And again, if we're upstairs in the morning, sometimes the children will come upstairs and say, my mum, my dad would like to speak to you. And then we're happy then to come downstairs and speak to you then as well. We're not behind a wall. We're very happy to come out and speak to everybody. So yeah, whatever works really. But we are available to come down and have a little chat just so we can listen to the concern.
The other thing that you can do, Mr. Singleton, as a parent, is just email the info account, which is the info@grovelands.surrey account. And then the office staff will pass that on to the teacher, who can then give you a ring at a convenient point during the day or after school. So either chat to the teacher or just email info, and then they'll get back to you as soon as they can.
Okay, there's no more questions I can see at the moment. So unless there's any more questions from yourselves, I think we are nearly finished.
Yeah, thank you very much. I sort of inside it. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's really great to have so many of you here, and also to Miss Calder and Miss Singleton for a really informative session. If you do have any questions subsequently, again, just see your teacher or ping an email to the info account, and we will get back to you answering your specific question. And again, it has been recorded, so do show the recording to anyone that hasn't been able to make it this morning. All right, thanks so much for joining us, and take care. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.